Yeah.
Work session was Saturday morning at 10 about his lottery. Staff members of the audience, we had a lively group here today. A lot of chatter. Let the record show that today is June the 6th. The time is 3:03, and we will now call Amherst County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Madam Chair, if I may, can I propose that we remove item from new business, item B, dam financing, remove that from the agenda, since the Service Authority elected at its earlier meeting to delay that for a year.
All right.
So Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve the agenda with the exclusion of item D on new business.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is amended. We will now be led the invocation by Mr. Tom Martin, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads and pray. Our Father, our God, Lord, we come before you humbly. Lord, we come before you as just servants of Amherst County and servants of you. Lord, we come before you today with somewhat heavy hearts because of the events that are going on in our great nation. But Father, we just pray for your peace to come across us, for you to unite all of us as one human race, Father, in love and peace for one another and comfort for one another. Father, as always, we lift up our county employees to you, our law enforcement, our public safety, and just pray for your protection over each of them. Father, we know that you will lead us through these trying times, and we just ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Salute the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We will now open up the meeting to citizen comments. Is there anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we will close citizen comments and move on to the consent agenda. Board members, do you have any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda is now approved, and we will move on to ordinances which have a first reading. First of those is ambulance billing ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. You all received this draft ordinance at the last meeting. It is now prepared for presentation to the public. We need your direction to direct it to public hearing before we can implement it. The purpose of which is to increase our emergency services fees to a level that's 150% of the authorized level for Medicare payments, and also add in additional fees that we haven't previously been charging. That are specified there in the package.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Board members, do y'all have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, but I will make a motion. I move that the board direct staff to modify the ordinance to allow changes for cases of, is that the right? That is the right one, isn't it?
Charges.
Charges.
I'm on the wrong one, excuse
There
me.
you go, yeah, you go. Charges.
Charges for cases, actually.
Allow charges for cases of treat and non-transport charges for supplies expended and to proceed with a public hearing at the board's June 16th meeting. Excuse me.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes on the second reading. Next, we've got parking in the fire lane ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. I'm proposing that we increase the fines for parking in the fire lane from $10 to $100. And that's the proposal, and that's the draft agenda for you. It has been suggested that we also look at other penalties that are in that very low range, around $10. and see if those should be addressed. Also, we are doing that, but they will be a separate ordinance and need to be handled separately. So as we collect those, we will bring those forward. But at this time, we'd like to just deal with the fire lane ordinance.
Right, this was an initiative by Ms. Moore, is that correct, Ms. Moore?
As a result of some feedback, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, any questions? Is there a motion?
I move that the board advertise and hold a public hearing on this ordinance amendment at its second June meeting.
All right, motion on the floor by Ms. Moore.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is another piece of ordinance in our arsenal on war on trash. It's been proposed that we expect businesses in the county that sell products that produce trash to have a waste receptacle out front so that their customers can place the waste in there. This too is being proposed to go forward, which means we need a public hearing on the matter scheduled at the second June meeting. I have informed the Economic Development Authority Director and the chairman or president, I'm not sure her title, of the Chamber of Commerce, and she has distributed that to members of the Chamber of Commerce so the business community is aware that this will be coming to a public hearing. With that, we'd like your permission to proceed to that public hearing. Are there any questions about the draft ordinance?
Questions, board members? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move the board advertise and hold a public hearing on this item, which is a litter receptacle ordinance, at its second June meeting.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes on to second reading. We'll now move on to new business. Video recordings of our Board of Supervisors meetings.
Yes, ma'am. One of the lessons learned out of this COVID-19 situation is how easy it is for us to broadcast meetings to the public. This meeting that we're in right now is being broadcast on YouTube to anyone who clicks on the link to go to our channel. We have determined that we are not required to maintain these recordings for historical and reference purposes. The Library of Virginia doesn't require that like it does other records. It's not an official record of ours. And we do plan to keep on record those public meetings that have been conducted online during this COVID-19 period, just for historic purposes. The question that we have is whether the board wants us to continue to do that. Once the governor drops restrictions and we're all moving about freely again, do you want us to continue to broadcast your meetings, or do you want to encourage people to actually be here? There's a mistake in here. When I wrote this up previously, I asserted that it was a strain on our resources to have these recordings at the night meetings because I don't have the extra staff to come and operate all that. But Regina has picked it up and will be able to do that during the evening meetings too. So that's really not the issue. The only question for the board is, do you want to be broadcast to the world while you're meeting?
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Board members, I actually do have a fairly strong opinion about this. It's one of the things that when I decided to run for the board, that was one of the things I felt was important, transparency and being able to use technology to communicate to our citizens what we were doing. Not everybody, regardless of their ability, of their want to, can get to these board meetings. I think it's a healthy thing for our community. Anyway, I'm supportive of it, but I'm only one vote. So any further discussion? Any other insights?
Madam Chair, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We do want to be transparent to our citizens. I've had several citizens talk to me about how they watched the meeting and been able to stay better informed. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be a strain on our staff resources. It doesn't sound like it's really costing us anything. So I think we should continue to do this.
I agree.
Absolutely.
All right, it looks like we have a consensus, and so I'm gonna make a motion that the board directs the staff to continue the recording of board and service authority meetings,
The broadcasting, ma'am,
broadcasting.
we don't want to keep any.
Yes, broadcasting, yes. And, Regina, thank you for helping us out, we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ma'am, would you like to hold the vote?
Probably would be prudent. I've made the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no, motion passes. Then, we're crossing that, once we're moving on to the Worley contract for financial auditors.
Yes, ma'am. This is probably the third time that you all have received this information, but you now have in your package the actual contract that's been found legally sufficient by the county attorney. The costs are there listed in your packet. Our fees have gone up, as one would expect over time. The contract is with Brown Edwards for them to continue their audit services. And we need your approval of the contract so that I can sign it or the chair will sign it. Designate that.
It does not matter. It can be either as long as it's set forth in the resolution.
So I would ask, Madam Chair, that that the board approve the contract for audit services with Brown Edwards as presented and direct me to sign on the board's behalf.
Board members?
Just one question, Mr. Rogers. Who was on the, said the county received the bids, interviewed potential auditors and selected Brown Edwards? Could you tell me who was on the panel?
Stacy, who else was on the panel with you?
Teresa Crouch and Bob Hopkins and myself.
Okay.
Anybody else? No.
All the finance people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the contract for audit services with Brown Edwards and Company, BLLC, as drafted.
And that Mr. Rogers signed.
And then Mr. Rogers signed the contract.
All right, motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, motion passes. And museum repairs.
Yes, ma'am. In this case, we need the direction of the board. You may or may not recall some time ago in our current budget, the board appropriated $26,500 for painting the museum. The work came in at a lot less than anticipated and at only $9,800, leaving a balance of $16,700 available. Now that money has been appropriated. That is, in our world, you've spent the money. And, but with that leftover, we have two choices. We can use the rest of it up, or we can allow it to drop back into the general fund. If you want to use it up, the next three projects on the supplemental list that the board prioritized were two HVAC projects at the Monroe Center and further museum exterior upgrades. Okay, so there's the museum, of course, would like that leftover money expended on the repair of the exterior porch, which is rotting, which is unsafe, which is blocked off from the public. Octavia Starbuck is here to answer questions about that. The director of Parks and Recreation, her mother passed away this week, and she's not here with us today. Of course, she would like the funding directed toward her building and the public use of that building. I can tell you that in the prioritization list, because we've done a great deal of research to bring this question to you, we knew that you would want to know which of these projects was the highest priority at the present time. And so it turns out that the HVAC 5-ton replacement at Monroe Center is actually a higher priority than the rest of the HVAC system at Monroe, because all of Monroe is a piecemeal of multiple systems, and some of it is so old that there are no longer parts. It's just a matter of waiting for that to go out. Likewise, the porch at the museum has visible soft spots and dips in the porch, and it's dangerous, and that's why the public is not left on there. Well, we cannot advise you as to which project is of higher priority. They're both about the same. They both serve different members of the public. The county does own the Monroe Center. The county does not own the museum. But with that, do you have any questions? We need your guidance on, do you want to return to the general fund, or do you want it spent on one of these two projects? And there's only enough money to do one of the projects. There's not enough to do two.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. That's a very good explanation. And when I was participating in the leadership call on Monday, we went through this, and I had asked Mr. Prophet, did he have, as staff, what we recommend? And he was talking about the floor. So this is going to be one of our first exercise of fiscal constraint and real discipline, as far as our priorities. So,
Madam Chair, if
Ms.
I may,
Martin.
one, I think all of those who were involved in the painting of the museum should be commended. I know you had $26,500 allocated, but you did that cheaper for $9,800. That's left a balance. You could have gone out and put gold leaf on the walls and this and that, but you didn't. So you saved money, and I think you should be commended for that. And I think if we want other areas that the county funds to also be prudent, we need to show them that when you do save money, if there's other priorities that you need, we're willing to work with you on that as well. So my thought is that we should fund the porch repair and then move the remaining balance and save it towards the replacement of the HVAC system at the school. Leave it in the general fund, and if other funds become available, because of savings, we'll fund that also. And I would make that as a motion.
Was there any further discussion?
Well said.
Very well said. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Starbuck. We appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Prophet, for your work on that as well. County Administrator report.
Yes, ma'am. The first item is just a quarterly update. We inform the board on a quarterly basis of positions that are opening up on your various boards, committees, commissions, and councils, so that you can rifle through your constituencies to find appropriate nominees that you would like to represent your districts. The next item is a seat on the Library Board of Trustees. The seat held by Mr. Ed Crispin from District 3 expires at the end of this month. We advertised that position, and only one person expressed interest, and that was Mr. Crispin.
Board members, you want to go ahead and take care of this one now? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Crispin as the District 3 representative to the Library Board of Trustees for a second 4-year term.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Mr. Crispin is appointed. Mr. Rogers, please convey our gratitude to him for his service.
Yes, ma'am, I will do that. The next item is a seat on the Social Services Board. Glenda Hash's seat will expire also at the end of this month. We have advertised that seat, and only one person has expressed interest, and that is Ms. Hash herself. Would the board like to reappoint her?
Board members?
I certainly would like to reappoint Ms. Ash. She has served on the board and served magnificently. I'm the liaison for the Social Services Board. She's done great, so I'll go ahead and make the motion. We reappoint Ms. Hash as the at-large representative to the Social Services Board for a second 4-year term.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Mr. Rogers, please, again, convey our sincerest gratitude to Ms. Ash for her service.
Yes, ma'am, we will do so.
Madam Chair, can we get back on the Planning Commission? So have you gotten any interest from the public on that yet, or is this?
We haven't advertised it yet, it's too far out.
All right, thank you.
All right, any calendar updates? Mr. Rogers, you had some things to share with us there?
Yes, ma'am. If the board members would like to sharpen their pencils, I'd like to remind you all that this evening at 7 p.m. is the public hearing for approval of our O&M budget. The budget cannot be approved tonight. We're only hearing comments from the public. We have to wait at least 7 days. We're going to wait longer than that in this case. I'll explain in a moment. That's tonight here at 7 p.m. Next week, the 10th of June, is when the Scottish Inn demolition permit is due to be applied for. Just wanted you to know that's what we're looking for. On the 16th of June is the next Board of Supervisors meeting. That will be an evening meeting. Now, the following week, the 23rd of June, is not a normal meeting Tuesday. It's a fourth Tuesday. But at 7 p.m. on the 23rd of June, we are going to hold a public hearing on the matter of non-equalization. Okay? That's treated as a tax increase. If the county were to equalize, in other words, lower its tax rate to match revenues with the new property tax assessment, we would be reducing our tax rate from 61 cents to 60 cents. So because we're not going to reduce by a penny, that's announced and treated as if it were a tax increase. So we're really just keeping the tax rate at 61 cents. We need to have a public hearing to receive information from the public on that. And the law allows us to adopt that non-equalization after that public hearing. So because we're meeting at that time, and because non-equalization is built into our budget, we are not going to approve the budget until we first approve the non-equalization. So we'll approve the non-equalization on the 23rd, then, even though it's much longer than 7 days, then the board will approve the county's own budget. Hopefully that makes sense.
On the 23rd.
On the 23rd, Tuesday the 23rd, not a normal meeting Tuesday. The next meeting is the 7th of July. We tend to cancel the meetings close to the 4th of July, but this year the holiday for the 4th of July is on Friday the 3rd. And so our 7th July meeting is actually the week after the 4th of July week. And so unless the board directs otherwise, I don't plan on canceling the 7th of July meeting. Of course, I'm open to direction otherwise. And my plan is at that meeting, with the assistance of the Commissioner of Revenue, to present the new business tax proposals that we want the board to consider for the following year.
All right, well, before we get to that point, let's talk about that week. I know that some board members have historically taken vacations that week. Is anyone here got any plans to be out of town? No?
Maybe that, I have to check and see what my wife is doing, but I think it's the week before.
I was going to say not unless my wife directs me otherwise.
There's no reason why we can't change it later.
Right,
I
right-
just wanted
right
to get in
now.
front of everybody now.
Yeah, pending conversations with certain wives, I think we'll be okay.
Okay, we'll proceed forward unless I hear otherwise. Just let me know and then I'll let the other board members know. Okay, that's all I have with regard to calendar items.
All right, we have now the county attorney's report. Mr. Lockaby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a bit of a walk-on item here in the county attorney's report. Y'all are probably generally aware that there was some violence in the city of Lynchburg over the weekend, as there has been across the country. It seems as though in our little part of the world that things have probably calmed down, but I know that the city of Lynchburg, I spent a while on the telephone yesterday with the city attorney, Walter Irwin, talking over the idea of a curfew and what a curfew ordinance would look like if that became something that was desirable. Some of the violence that went down in the city of Lynchburg was less than half mile, I believe, from the Amherst County border. So that may be something for us to take into consideration. Working with Walter, I drafted this. I drafted a curfew ordinance, which this board could consider for enactment today on an emergency basis if it chose to do so. When I did this last night, it wasn't clear whether there might be further violence last night, and therefore it made it very advisable for you to take up the matter today. It's up to you whether you think it's important to do it. The basic idea of the ordinance is that when there is a local emergency that has been declared, the county administrator may declare a curfew. That curfew would provide for people not to be out in the street except for going to and from their jobs, going and also being at various emergency curfew, being as they don't have a house to be in. More than happy to answer questions. The basic concept is to allow us to have a curfew if it became advisable to have one due to there being, shall we say, outbreaks of violence and other criminal activity. I wanted also to mention to y'all that there is a unlawful assembly ordinance, which provides that if there is an unlawful assembly, which is to say a demonstration that becomes violent and or starts destroying public or private property, that the sheriff's department has the authority to break that up. They have the authority to arrest people who are in fact disorderly or committing crimes. And once they have commanded the assembly to disperse, they also have the authority to fine people who are still in the place and have not yet found their way back home. That's an existing ordinance that we already have. There's also an ordinance which provides that on the scene of a fire or other disaster or emergency response, failure to obey the orders of the commanding fire EMS officer on the scene is a Class 4 misdemeanor. So that's also something that's already on the books. If you do think that giving the county administrator authority to declare a curfew in coming days is something valuable to have, you could adopt that ordinance today. It could be in effect for no more than 60 days unless we re-adopted it following public hearing. Again, it follows very closely to Lynchburg's ordinance, so therefore, if there had to be mutual aid between the city police department and our sheriff's department, it would be easy for there to be interchangeability and of enforcement between the two departments.
Thank you, Mr. Lockman. Board members, this ordinance, like any other ordinance, it could go through first, second, and third reading. We know how long that takes. Or we could go ahead and do this as an emergency ordinance and adopt it today. I spoke briefly with the sheriff. I personally would like to see us give every tool to our sheriff's department and our commonwealth's attorney that we possibly can. That's my personal opinion. We have no reason to believe that that there's anything afoot in Amherst County. This is just being prepared. So, any questions or comments?
I fully agree, Madam Chair. Just to be clear to the public, this does not mean there is a curfew in place. This is just a tool if we need to do one or the county administrator deems it necessary to protect our county and our citizens. So, Madam Chair, I would recommend, I move that we adopt the ordinances prepared by the county attorney.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Lockaby. And for the record, this will go into effect exactly when?
At the end of this meeting.
Okay.
And the ordinance is in effect, but there is not a curfew until the county administrator declares it and promulgates that, which means that he puts it on the county website, announces it every way he can think of to the world so that everybody has a chance to know that it exists.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lockerbie. We now have liaison committee reports for your review, and we will move on to Department Spotlight and Social Services. Ms. Mays, good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come up and share with us what your department is doing, because their work is so very, very important.
Good afternoon. I know y'all got a busy day, and I did send in a PowerPoint presentation, but I think I'm just going to hit some high spots for you. Okay, it's at the very end of the packet. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, so I gave you a couple of slides with some dates that gives the history of public welfare in this country, but I'm going to hit three high spots. One was in the 1930s, and in 1935, the Federal Social Security Act was approved, which provided for federal financial participation in assistance, and the three original programs were old age assistance, aid to dependent children, and aid to the blind. And then we're going to skip ahead. There were changes, mostly title changes and what fell under our department's responsibility, but in the 60s, we ushered in what was described as an all-out war on poverty. And the Social Security amendments of 1962 offered open-ended, extensive increases in federal matching funds. And that set the stage for welfare to grow significantly because states couldn't turn down the opportunity to get that federal funding. And so that's when public welfare, as we think of it today, grew extensively. And then the final period that I wanted to point out was in the 90s when we ushered in welfare reform. And the idea behind welfare reform was to empower our clients to break their dependence on the government system. And it has been successful and non-successful both. We have seen, we've got great stories to tell, and then we've got some generational poverty that those programs didn't resolve. So one of the most important things I wanted to share with you guys today, and I know y'all know this, everything we do downstairs is because the federal government mandates it. You have the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Agriculture, and they create regulations based on what Congress has passed. They send the regulations to the states. The states then have to develop policy based on those regulations and develop regulations based on what the General Assembly passes. And then all of that comes to bear on the local department. We're kind of where the rubber hits the road and we actually deliver the services. But everything that the feds pass is mandated to the states, and everything the state passes is mandated to the 124 local departments. So then I wanted to tell you a little bit about our people. You've got two screens that just show our current staffing. We have 46 positions. We had 47, but we took 2 half-time positions and combined them into 1 full-time. So we have 44 full-time now and 2 part-time positions. Of those, 16 positions are tied to family services. That's what we used to call social workers. They're working with families to protect children, to protect vulnerable adults, and just trying to ensure that families are safe and can thrive in our community. Then we have 23 staff people who are in the benefit program side, and that is all of those welfare programs that resulted from the 1930s and the 1960s. We have 6 administrative support staff and then the 1 director. So our program screen, everything on the left side is the benefit programs. Everything on the right side is the family services programs. So what we call the big 3 are Medicaid, SNAP, and TANF. Then in addition to those, because those 3 most people are familiar with, in addition we have auxiliary grant. That is a cash payment to indigent individuals in an assisted living facility like Johnson Senior Center. It helps pay for them to be able to have a room in an ALF. Then we have the Energy Assistance Program. We have VIEW. This is their employment services program. It's called Virginia Initiative for Education and Work. And that's the program that tries to help get folks trained and able to make a living wage, get a decent job, and be self-sufficient. We have child care, and then of course we have fraud investigations. And because that appeals to me, and I'm sure it appeals to some of you, I thought I would share that between fiscal years 16, 17, and 18, we had 27 felony and 3 misdemeanor prosecutions. We had claims of over $48,000, and we cash collected downstairs over $38,000. So we take our fraud seriously too. On the right-hand column, we've got everything that the family services unit is involved with, and that includes child protective services, child welfare services. What that is everything that happens before and after a determination of abuse or neglect. It's the work we do with the families to try to prevent abuse and to try to prevent children from coming in foster care. We have the foster care program. Right now we have 36 children in care. We have adoption, adult services, adult protective services, court-ordered services, and service intake. That's INR to help individuals tap into resources in the community. Okay. All right, how we measure up. And I don't know if those screens are going to be very easy to see, but this is an excerpt from their most recent local profile. And the things I want you to look at are, if you look at the first chart, you'll see that they are broken down SNAP, TANF, and Medicaid. Our SNAP caseload is down, our TANF caseload is down, our Medicaid caseload is up, primarily because of Medicaid expansion in Virginia. Those trends will probably flip now as a result of COVID. The other thing on this screen I wanted you to see in the upper right column, that's 7630. That's taken a look, an unduplicated count of everybody who received benefits for one of those 3 big programs. This is unduplicated, so 24% of Amherst County citizens received one or more of those benefits in state fiscal year 19. That's where this report came from. So if you'll flip on to the next one, if you take that 24% and then you add into it some of the people you're going to see on this screen that we work with, we probably touch the lives of about 1/3 of the county citizens. On this screen, I wanted to point out that at the time of this report, we had 33 kids in foster care. It's 36 right now. We had 12 children receiving adoption assistance. That's up to 15. That's a good thing for the locality because foster care costs you a lot of money and adoptions don't cost you anything. So when we can provide permanency for that child and get a child out of foster care, it's going to save the county money. In fiscal year 19, we had 508 children named in a CPS referral, a Child Protective Services referral.
How many?
508
In 1 year?
in 1 year. And that was down from the previous year. I think the previous year was 693, something like that.
Now, this is the referrals, this don't necessarily mean,
Doesn't mean it got investigated, and it doesn't mean that the abuse or neglect occurred, but it means that we received calls from someone concerned in the community, concerned about a child in their county.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, it's not a loaded question, it's just, so if you got a call, why would you not investigate?
Okay. Policy and guidelines, there are three basic questions we have to ask to determine whether a complaint is what they call validated. One is, are they under 18? Second question is, do they live in Amherst County, or did the abuse or neglect allegedly occur in Amherst County? And honestly, Mr. Martin, I can't even remember what the third question is, but it's those kind of things, just setting the parameters that yes, we have jurisdiction.
So, okay, and that makes perfect sense, so it's not like you just ignored it, you
No.
just look at it.
Now, the third one is we have to see if it meets any of the definitions in our policy of abuse and neglect. And I'll give you an example, which surprised me. Child safety seats in vehicles is not considered abuse and neglect. It's considered a driving infraction. So if somebody called and said, Mr. Martin didn't have his 3-year-old in a car seat, we would not validate that because it does not fall under policy for abuse and neglect.
I can guarantee you Mr. Martin's not having any more 3-year-olds.
The last figure on that page is 194 individuals were the subject of an adult protective services complaint. This is an area that is growing in leaps and bounds. In FY16, we had 86. By FY18, it had more than doubled. Okay, the money page.
Can I ask a question before you get the money?
Sure.
All right, on the foster care, you said you had, I think it was 35.
36.
36. Are those each individual child, or could a child be in foster care, go out, and then go back in the same fiscal year? Is that 2 cases or 1 case?
We refer to it as separate incidences of foster care, but those head counts are always a moment in time count, not a collection over the year. So if I tell you we have 36 today, we have 36 children.
That may or may not have been in foster child care before.
Exactly. Okay. This is one of my favorite reports we get from the state. I always eagerly watch to make sure that our local dollars are being well spent. I tend to think that's my job, is to use your money to tap into every bit of revenue that I can so that I don't have to spend your money. And we have consistently for years now been able to hold our local contribution to our overall budget to 2%. Now, you don't see that when you are working on your local budget and you're approving their operational budget. That doesn't include the things that are showing up in this report. But this is money that does come into the community. So for your investment in FY19 of 1.4 million, it drew $65 million into the local economy. Okay, just a couple more. I wanted you to see that we manage by data and that we take our performance seriously. And I'm very proud of my staff for the work they do. And these are some examples of some measurements. The first three are the SNAP program. There's a total, then an expedited and a non-expedited. The expectation is that we're timely 97% of the time, and we met that goal, and you can tell that we exceeded the goal, but we definitely exceed what the state as a whole and what the Piedmont region performance numbers are. TANF applications, we met the goal. Medicaid applications, we are close to the goal. And this one's a burr under my saddle because our internal figures show that we're at 100%, but we have a central processing unit in Richmond that every now and then when they let something go overdue, then they dump it on us. And so it affects our figure. But you can still tell that we're still well above the state average, even with that ongoing battle we have. Our child care, the same thing, we're at 100%. On the next screen, CPS referrals overdue. The target is to have less than 5%, we have 1%. Timeliness of first contact, the goal is 95. We're almost at 95 and we exceed both the state and the Piedmont region. Congregate care placements, they want them under 16% and we're at 10. Kinship care, that's something that we can work on. We're not at goal on that. And we find more and more that if mom and dad aren't appropriate for a child, chances are grandma and grandpa aren't either. And so we find kinship placements a real challenge. Our monthly foster care visits, target is 95, we're at 97. Monthly visits in the actual residence where the child is living, the target is 50%. In other words, every other month, we should see the child in their home. And we're exceeding that goal as well. So just 3 areas that I wanted to let you know that we're paying attention to. Technology is one and business operations is another. And in both of those areas, we're seeing some real positive things. We have moved very rapidly to digital case files. That's going to save us square footage as we grow. Using iPads and notebooks in the field is making our workers more efficient. Having VPN tokens so they can telework is helping. And we even have electronic communication now between other partners. For example, our adult services uses Peer Place, so does Horizon, and who else? Area Agency on Aging. So we're actually communicating within the same system. Substance use disorder and mental health are areas that concern us. Because we're seeing an increase in numbers of investigations, increase in foster care caseloads, difficulty finding appropriate relatives as an alternative to foster care, And we're seeing children with much more complex challenges. So it gets really difficult to match them to a family that can help meet their needs. We've had some really tough kids.
What
But
happens when you exhaust all kinship things and there's no foster parents? Do they go,
that's when congregate care most often gets used.
that's like the Presbyterian home? Or-
That's like either residential treatment facilities or group homes. We've had a couple of teams that we've had to place at the Lynchburg group home, and it's really just a holding pattern while we try to find a good match for them. But you don't want your kids there. So we try to resolve it as quickly as we can. But I just wanted to stress today that the policy comes mostly from Washington, some from Richmond. We don't get to write the policy downstairs, but we will continue to try to administer the policy on behalf of this board in a way that is fiscally responsible and still keeps the citizens safe. Any more questions?
Thank you, Ms. May. Any questions from Ms. May?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and please thank your staff. This is a great presentation. I appreciate it.
I was wondering where you were. I couldn't see.
All right, we're moving on now to citizens' comments. Well, before we do that, Ms. Myers, did you have anything that you would like to say to the board before we move on?
We held our third trash pickup day this past weekend. And as we all know, there are a variety of factors that allow people to come out or not, knowing whether being one of them children, family issues, etc. This past day, my friend from Charlottesville and I were at one of the pickups, and Dina Lee and her husband were at the other one. And we were individually the organizers, so she and I each brought a friend, and those were the only people who came, which is not really a complaint. There are plenty of things to do to modify the situation to hopefully get more activity, more involvement. I'm here to ask a favor from you guys. I don't know a lot of people all over the county. Like where I live, like near Cutler Mills and near Elon, I'm able to get like 20 or 25 people to come out, or I at least know 20 or 25 people who I think care and would be willing to pick up trash at some point, or I know would be interested in getting vests or bags to do so on their own time if the particular time that we've set up doesn't work for them. Like Dina was on 60 East. I don't know a lot of people on 60 East. And like we were picking up trash on Glade Road, which, embarrassing to admit, I didn't even know where Glade Road was. And I'm picking these areas based on feedback from members of the community and also feedback from people on our calls every couple of weeks. So there are areas that do need attention, but I don't know enough people to help get trash picked up there. And I'm also not trying to pick up trash every week in my neighborhood because I feel like that's not really polite either. Even though I easily could because there's plenty of trash. So my request is that you guys rack your brains and see if you can think of one person from your districts that you think would be interested, or maybe even if they're not personally interested, like has a community or a network in that area of people who care. Like my mom's garden club has been a really good resource for me because they all are interested in the environment and they all are, around and interested in helping in the community. So I'm not asking for a name right now, but I would love if you guys could think about it and see if you could each come up with someone from your respective districts. And the objective for this person would be basically to just be a point of contact. Like if someone's out of town and if they're inclined, they could leave these pickups, but they could have like bags and vests. And if somebody from their area wants to do something independent of what we're doing, they could get the resources from this individual, or it's just basically to get more involvement. And I don't feel like I know the right people to get, community-wide or county-wide involvement.
Okay, we will, board members, let's think about that. Have you gone to the Eagle Scouts or the Boy Scouts or any of these?
I have not, and I am open to any and all suggestions of where people think I should be tapping, resources.
What about churches in different areas where you get email?
Yeah, that's great. I've talked to people at Emmanuel Methodist, which was my church growing up, but I don't have a lot of, like, and, Dina Lee belongs to a different church, and I know she's been reaching out to people there. But yeah, any suggestions you guys have, I'm more than open to them.
So board members, if I may, Madam Chair, if you don't have Ms. Meyer's email account directly, if you just want to send me the names and phone numbers of contacts, I will get them to her.
We're also working on putting together just a database of individuals who are interested, so ideally we can put together a longer term schedule so people will know in advance the times and the dates of the pickups. Basically just general organization to help people have more timely awareness so they can be involved if they so choose.
Mr. Lockley, how do we talk to the judge to see if this could be included in community service?
I think we're already
We're already doing that.
Already doing that?
With
Yeah.
Mr. Carver,
Okay,
and our funding, as our funding comes through for our pre and post-trial services, the person that manages those cases will then work with the judge, and they'll have a place to put these people and give them work assignments. So we're headed in that direction, yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, around the county, there's a lot of signs up, adopt highway or adopt a street.
Yep.
Years ago, when I was with 4-H in the horsemanship program with Blue Ridge Caballeros, we adopted the road that I live on, and I still live on there. They still come down once a year and pick up trash. I don't know how often that's taking place with these other signs, but maybe that could be a point of contact, to contact the individuals. The names are on the sign, contact those.
We actually have secured the spreadsheet of people involved from VDOT, Robert Brown sent that to us, and Dina Lee, Charlotte, Fluharty, and I have been dividing the list up and have been contacting those people because a lot of them seem a little bit outdated. Just to get feedback from them on what their experience has been like, how often they're picking up trash, what they're actually doing, like if they're not doing it, why they're not doing it, lack of contact, lack of resources, they don't know where to get bags, etc. But yeah.
In the Adopt a Highway program, anybody who gets a sign is required to do a cleanup twice a year.
Yeah, well, they've always done it once a year is what I've seen, but the sign's still there, but that's just a resource and you've already got that.
For sure, yeah, but just reaching out to those people who are involved could help spread the word also.
Absolutely.
right?
How do you publicize when the trash pickups are occurring?
So far, our only method of publicization, to my knowledge, and Joy can probably speak to this better than me, but we've been announcing it on the county's page, and we've been announcing it on the county Facebook page.
Joy has also created a Facebook group
Yeah, that's what I meant.
for the
Sorry.
CCC. So it's on the group page, group Facebook page, the county Facebook page, and the county website. And of course, when you all see anything on the county Facebook page, please share it with your networks, because you all have rather large networks.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Myers.
Yeah.
If you need anything, let us know.
I won't hesitate.
All right, moving on,
All
right, we now open up the meeting to citizen comment. Anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we will close citizen comment and move on to members of the board. Mr. Martin? Mr. Pugh? Ms. Moore? And I don't have anything. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion on the floor to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
See you all at 7.